Welcome to Perfect Game Softball. I'm Brett Dolan, filling in for Darren Sutton, an old friend Amanda Freed, filling in for Sierra Romero, who we will hear from later on in the show. But Amanda, this was fun. We got a chance to talk to a couple of guests, but we also visited with a champion, Southern Oregon Raiders, the head coach, Jessica Pistole. What a journey it was for those young ladies this year, but to finish in a dominating way as a champion was an amazing cap to their campaign.
Oh, if you look at their season, the path that they came on in the journey was so unique to them, as coach will say, and kind of a rocky road, but they pulled it together when it mattered, knocked off Oregon Tech, who had beaten them 5 times previously in the season. But it was a storybook ending for that program, and it was just so wonderful talking to her about the athletes and the way that they were able to perform at the end. And it was a really fun conversation.
Speaking of fun conversations, are you excited to talk to Jordy Bahl? It feels like she's captivated not just the softball world, but the sporting world between winning a championship, going into the portal, going back home to Nebraska. It's been a wild few weeks for that young lady, too.
I'm so excited for Jordy Bahl and the decision that she made, because you can really feel the passion in her voice when she talks about going back home and being able to be Jordy Bahl, the person, again. And the way that she's going to impact Nebraska's program, I think, is just tremendous for her, for them, and for this sport as a whole. And, the kudos that she gives to Oklahoma for that part of her journey. I mean, she's a national champion 2 times. Her career has just been phenomenal. And she's just a cool person to talk to. So I'm excited for her.
We'll talk to Jordy Bahl coming up next. Can't wait for that right here on Perfect Game Softball. Welcome to Perfect Game Softball. Brett Dolan with Amanda Freed and our special guest, Jordy Bahl. There's so much greatness right here. We've got national championships, state championships, Olympic gold medals between this duo, so I can't wait to get them talking to each other. But Jordy, first of all, congratulations on your success. I'm curious what the last 3 or 4 weeks have been like from an emotional standpoint, winning a championship, transferring back home. It feels to me like it's been a lot. What has it felt like to you?
Yeah, you said it. It definitely has been a lot. I think within the span of a week, we went from winning the championship to partying with Toby Keith right afterwards, which was super awesome. And then talking to my teammates and my coaches and telling them that I was going to be coming home, which was very tough to do, a very hard thing to do. But then once I get home and it just starts to slowly set in, just a feeling of sort of relief and just joy. So it's been all over the place from high to low and everywhere in between, but it's been really a cool week. So.
And I want you to talk a little bit more about your team this season, because we'll get to a lot of the transfer stuff. It was a shock, I think, for most people who don't know you personally, but let's talk about your Oklahoma team this season and what you guys were able to accomplish, what you do in the circle, but your whole team dynamic, dominant. Tell us a little bit about your experience with this team this season.
This was a really special year, and we had a really fun team, a lot of different personalities, and it was cool because we had like half of our team was returning, but then half of our team was new. And so we had a lot of newcomers. And so it was just super cool because while winning the championship is something that has happened 3 times now in the last 3 years, for half of our team, it was the very first time. So there was still that feeling of like, wow, this is like just overwhelming, like super cool because it had never happened for a lot of our teammates before. But we faced a lot of challenges this year. I think one of the big ones just being the pressure and the amount of hype that our team was getting. And it's hard to just not let that get to you. And you can, in a way, start putting way too much pressure on yourself if you let all of that outside noise in. So I think a big challenge for our team this year was just keeping focused on what we were doing, and keeping our circle and not letting our eyes or our ears start to wander outside of that.
I'm curious on the expectation too, because I think you touched on it. There's pressure involved. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody, athletes, golfers, tennis players, maybe other than the Harlem Globetrotters, where the expectation is you're going to win every single night. Does that start to compound? How do you feel that when everybody expects you to win and it's not that easy to win every single night?
Um, One thing that we talked about as a team is that pressure is a privilege. And the reason that you feel the pressure is because that you have had the success. And so with the success comes the pressure, and that's just a part of it. But learning how to play with that pressure and kind of adapt to it just keeps elevating you as a team. So I think at the end of the day, it definitely helped us, and it's going to continue to help that program moving forward because they're going to continue to be super successful and feel that every year. So
I'm curious how long you had the feelings of, I don't want to call it homesick. I don't know your feelings when you left. I know you committed to Nebraska originally before you decided on Oklahoma, and you have very strong ties to home. Have your feelings for kind of wanting to be back home or missing home, did it start when you got into Oklahoma? Were you feeling those over the last couple of years, or did they just start to come on stronger this last year?
So they were definitely there my freshman year, but I knew that every freshman goes through a period of time where they're extremely homesick. It's just part of it. It's your first time away from home. And so, I just like, okay, I'm a freshman. I'm supposed to be homesick, And then my sophomore year, instead of those feelings kind of going away, they just continued to get stronger. So they were there. I've always been a homebody. Even like you said, I was committed to Nebraska when I was really young. And then making the decision to decommit from Nebraska and go to Oklahoma, that was even a hard thing to do because it was hard to make the decision to leave home. It's not something I naturally would just do if I didn't play softball. But I had the awesome opportunity to go play for Oklahoma and play for Coach Gasso, who's probably like the best to ever do it, and play with those girls. And so that was also a really hard thing to pass up. And I am very glad that I did go down there because I wouldn't really change anything for how it's gone. It's been great. So
How did you tell your teammates? Was that an aspect that you had been thinking about for a period of time? Was that hard to kind of explain how much it was important for you to go home and be closer to the family in Nebraska?
so after the World Series wrapped up, I wanted to tell them in person. And so we kind of got together at the pool one day, and about half the girls were there. So I told the girls that were there then. And then the ones that weren't there, I reached out to over the phone. But I think they all knew where my heart was at. We're a very tight knit team, and we know each other besides just on the field. And so they knew that I had been struggling with things like that, the homesickness for a while. And honestly, they were all super supportive of me. Sad because we're going to miss each other, obviously, and we liked playing together and just being together. But at the end of the day, they all expressed that they wanted me to be happy and they wanted me to do what was best for me. And I think that's a sign of just great friendship. I think that just speaks volumes, like how they responded beyond the field. And that's something that our team is so much about. Like none of us are just softball players, and they totally understand that, and they know where I was coming from. And if anything, they were supportive. So definitely appreciate that from them.
And I read an article and it talked about you mentioning, you want to go home to be Jordy Bahl, the softball player, but also Jordy Bahl, the person. And I'm curious what that means to you, like the person part, because I think it's easy for everybody to see you on TV and see Jordy Bahl, the softball player, and you win games and you win championships, and you think, how in the world could you want anything other than that? But like you said, there's so much beyond the game that makes you a complete person. So I'm curious, when you said that, what it means to you and what you most look forward to being at home.
Yeah, so I would say going back even to high school, there were times I struggled with identity as far as being a softball player. I felt like that's the only way that people really knew me as. And so it was very important to me to lean into my outside hobbies and to have a life separate from the field. And I also am just super tight with my family, and I always have been, and they helped me through some of those hard times in high school. So I know it's funny. I talk to girls and they like siblings, like they always get in fights with their siblings and like, oh my gosh, I wish I had it. Like I have 3 brothers, and I know siblings can do this a lot, but at the same time, they are my best friends. And I think a big part of that is just how we were raised. So, I mean, it's hard to understand sometimes because not everyone gets along with their siblings great, but my brothers are by far my best friends, and I know that they've always got my back. But then when I went to Oklahoma, it was not that all I had there was softball, but all those things that I love more than the game in my life were 7 hours away. And so I struggled with, I'm so big on not letting softball be the number one thing in my life, but I moved 7 hours away from everything else that's more important to me. And so, like on the weekends, whenever we weren't doing softball, I just wouldn't know what to do. It's like, well, I'm just going to hang out. I guess I hung out with the girls a lot, and they were always supportive of whenever I was going through things. But, everyone's different. I just have been rooted in my family and going hunting with my dad and my brothers, going out with my brothers to the sports bar in town and just hanging out, getting some food and watching sports on TV, and just being able to go get coffee with my mom on her lunch break. Just all those things that I enjoy outside of softball, I just didn't have. And so it really started to just take a toll. And I almost felt like I was in high school again at times, where it's like all I do is softball. I don't have anything else right now in my life besides softball.
I think that makes perfect sense. I'm curious, Jordy, what it's like for you now. I think maybe you might be the most famous Nebraskan currently. Now you're home, you're closer to friends and family. The season tickets have just gone crazy. I think there was more than 2,000 people putting in requests for season tickets once you made your announcement. What's it going to be like now being closer, in the sense that people are going to want to talk to you, or an autograph or a picture, or they're going to recognize you as one of them and as a fellow Nebraskan. But I'm curious what that'll feel like.
I don't know. I don't think it's quite set in yet. It's just been so busy the last couple of weeks here getting settled in back home. But seeing the season ticket numbers shoot up is super, super exciting. And I think now the goal is for our team is going to be, all right, we got him here. Let's keep him here. Let's let's put on a show. So yeah, I don't really know. I've never liked the spotlight, to be completely honest. A lot of the noise and everything, I try to not tune into that much, but I'm very excited to see all the excitement that's going to be around the program itself, because I think it is going to be really cool to see Nebraska softball get some attention. And it's going to be really cool, because I just remember growing up and sitting in the stadium and watching the games. And I think it's going to be crazy the first time to be out on that field and see it like a sellout crowd. It's just going to be a pretty emotional moment, I think.
So what do you do? Kind of going off of that, you kind of answered my question that I was going to ask, but what did you know about the program going into it? I know that you grew up there, but did you know a lot about the program? But what are you hoping to accomplish with your time there?
Like you said, I grew up watching the team play, and the three coaches that they have on staff right now are they've been there forever, and they've coached together forever. So I know that that they are a strong staff, and I played with quite a few of the girls growing up as well. So I'm excited to get to play with them again and kind of finish it full circle playing together as well. But I think the goal is just to make a run and go as far as we can. And see what happens. I think every day, if we just go out there and give it everything we have and just kind of know that the end is already written. And so if we just put in the hard work, that's all we can do. See what happens. I think that would be the coolest thing ever, to see Nebraska softball make a postseason run.
I think it would be, Jordy. And I think about you. I mean, 3 straight state championships before you go off to college in Papillion, 2 straight national championships from the college ranks. So 5 straight years you've been a champion. And there are some teams and some players where, if they're competing for a championship, that's a pretty good year. If they get an opportunity to be on the big stage, how will you kind of help your teammates understand what it's like to kind of aspire for the top prize, not just maybe getting to a championship, but to win it? How can your background maybe help encourage a few other of your future teammates on what it requires and what it takes to be a champion?
Right. I think what I just want to do with the past experience, I guess, is just go in confident. I think a big part of getting to that point is just believing that you have what it takes to get there. And I believe that it can happen. And so I just want to be a confident presence in the circle and be a presence that people can draw to for confidence. And so I think that's just what I'm going to try to do. I definitely don't want to just walk into a new program and overstep anything. But I just want to be a good teammate and build good relationships with these girls. I'm excited for it. And like I said, just bring some confidence.
Amanda, my question for you and Jordy. I'm curious, Jordy, if you want to swing the bat too. I've seen your high school home run numbers. We saw you running the bases. But you're talking to Amanda who was playing center field in the Olympics, and she's pitching in UCLA, and she was able to do it both. And some start to do both and maybe kind of specialize in one or the other. Do you want to swing the bat? And do you have a question for Amanda on what it's like to be both a position player and a full-time pitcher?
She is one.
Well,
I see you running out there, right?
yeah. Well, I swung the bat in practice. I just never was in the lineup because obviously we had a stacked lineup. And so I was like, nope, you go right on ahead. So I've been swinging it. I like swinging it, whether it's just in practice or in games. I'm just happy to be doing whatever I can be doing. But yeah, so you have the in-game experience. I do not. So
That's so funny. You're an athlete, though. I love that. I have one more question. Because this portal thing has just been, the talk of the town, and it's crazy. And I feel like we see most of the time athletes leveling up, if you would. And it's no disrespect to the Nebraska program, but people would ask, like, wow, how do you go from the national championship, seasons and things that Oklahoma has to a Nebraska? But I think it's a really great lesson for young athletes during the recruiting process to really look into what the best fit is for them and not always keeping their eye on, that top 0.5%, but really what is it that's going to fuel you as a person and an athlete. So I'm curious your advice for young athletes as they go through the recruiting process, because you love the path that you took and this is where you are, but do you have any advice that you would offer for these athletes who might be struggling with the decision to stay close to home, to go away, and different things like that?
yeah, I would just say everyone is different. And so what different people need is going to differ. So maybe if this one path is what majority of people take, that doesn't mean that it's the best path for you, because you have to take care of yourself as a human first. And so what I started to realize is that when I wasn't taking care of myself as a human first, and I was just feeding into the top of my softball dreams that I've had since I was a young girl, it was very rewarding, but I started to just lack in my overall happiness as a person. And then I lost that balance in my life, and then I wasn't enjoying the game as much as I wanted to be either. And so I would say you're not going to enjoy the game if you don't enjoy your life outside of the game. So you have to find a balance with both. And like I said, everyone's different. That's going to look different for everybody. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but you have to truly just listen to your heart and do what is going to be best for you, and lean on your inner circle, lean on those people that care about you as a person before an athlete, those people that if you'd never touched a ball again in your life, they would still be there for you and love you all the same. So you got to really tap into those relationships and also just listen to your heart.
That's great advice. I'm curious, Jordy, what you're majoring in, what you might want to do post softball whenever that time comes, what the aspirations are beyond just throwing that yellow ball.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly what I want to do. I like the idea of being a nurse. I like the idea of being a teacher. I like the idea of being a coach somewhere in the state. And so the degree that I'm pursuing right now, it's called Human Development and Family Sciences, but it has a lot of electives. So if I decide to go the nursing route, I can plug science classes into those electives, or I can plug the classes I would need to be a teacher. And then once I graduate, I will have a lot of credits that I need to pursue an accelerated nursing program or to pursue the other requirements I would need to be a teacher. So I can go a lot of different routes with it. So it was a good major to settle on, knowing that I'm kind of undecided for sure on what I want to do.
I like that. Maybe final thought. What kind of hunter are you? I'm curious with that. And how much are the brothers going to enjoy coming to games and be able to drive 45, 50 minutes to be able to see you on a regular basis?
Yeah, well, I love to hunt pheasant and deer. I actually have a 1-year-old lab named Remington. I call her Remy, but she lives with me. And so she's a bird dog, and I'll get to take her out with my dad and my brothers quite a bit in the fall, which I'm looking forward to. I think last year it was only a couple times when I was home for break. But then I am more excited to go to my brother's games than they're probably excited to come to mine. So my brother is going to be a freshman at Midland University, which is an NAIA school in Nebraska up in Fremont. And so that's not a far drive. So I'll get to go tailgate those games and then watch him do his thing. And then my youngest brother is a junior in high school and he'll be playing basketball and I'll get to go watch all of his games. And then my oldest brother is getting his first teaching job in Papillion, so that's not far away, and I'll be able to meet up with him quite a bit. So I am so excited to just, my brothers have shown me so much support in all of my years of playing, and now I'm going to be able to turn around and support them as they've supported me. So that's probably something I'm most excited for in being home.
I have a feeling the Ball family grid and schedule and calendar is pretty crazy with all the different games and all the different events.
Yeah, luckily we have all kind of picked a different sport, so the different seasons are nice, Football's in the fall, softball's in the spring, basketball's in the winter. Somehow we worked that out, but
smart.
Yeah.
Very well.
Well done, Jordy. Congratulations on everything. It's been an amazing run for you. I know you've been the talk of the softball world, and there's going to be so much curiosity to watch you over the next couple of years and just to see you enjoy being home and closer to the family. We wish you the best, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much.
That's the one and only Jordy Bahl. We'll come back with more of Perfect Game Softball in a moment. Perfect Game Softball has gone all the way out to Ashland, Oregon. We're going to talk about the NAIA champions, Southern Oregon University, with their head coach, Jessica Pistole. Coach, congratulations. It was an amazing run, 50 wins this year, the championship. You take down your rival to win it all. What's the last month been like? How excited were your young ladies bringing home the big championship again?
Yeah, thank you. It's felt like a complete whirlwind, honestly. It always does coming back from the World Series. Just because we're on the quarter system, so there's still finals, there's graduation, all of it is still ahead of them when they return. So trying to, get meetings in with everybody and honor the season as a whole, but not take up too much time because they're slammed. And of course, do some end of the year celebration stuff. It was pretty special.
Well, and talk a little bit about your season as a whole, because when you go through, and we'll get to the Oregon Tech rivalry and what you guys were able to do with that whole monster, but still talk about kind of your journey through the season from when you walked onto the field, what your expectations were, to how the girls played that out and eventually get into the championship.
Yeah, it was a very challenging season in some ways. Our journey was super, unique to us as it always is each year. But we struggled to find the consistency to play at the level we knew that we could, and we knew we had the athletes, we knew we had amazing women, and just the pieces. But to put it all together, we'd see glimpses of it, but not like being able to hold that level. And I think what kicked it in was having ourselves actually in if we lose this game, our season's over situation after we lost that first game in the opening round against Vanguard. And it just, there was something that shifted right then after that loss that was like, we are not going out like this. And honestly, they all were able to accept and embrace their roles too, which took the time of the whole season. But I think when that happened, which was right around the same time as postseason hit, then we just kind of ran with it.
I'm still trying to process winning a championship, and everybody has to race home to finish out the academic year and the finals and the challenges that come with that. Because sometimes, the beauty of maybe the Women's College World Series or the Men's College World Series, it becomes all about softball or baseball at some point. But my goodness, that was not the case for your young women.
No, but you know what? Up until we were actually home, I mean, they did a great job, study hall on the road and, trying to like be able to channel in their academics when we were in the hotel and not practicing or not playing. But, we were all about softball and all about what we went there to do until we, came back to reality, and that part felt felt like a hard adjustment. And then you have the bittersweet, ending for those 8 seniors who went out in the best way possible, but are also, like, every time they talk about it, have these grieving emotions that are like, my career's done, I'm done playing. And even though it was the best way possible to go out, you have it all in the same place. And yeah, it's real.
Well, so I'm looking over your schedule, and with that Oregon Tech, it just kind of stood out because you go and you see, I mean, you're not far from each other either, so that rivalry
Right.
has got to be pretty strong. And they were ranked 1 for the whole season, the majority of the season. And you dropped, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 games before coming back and knocking them off really handedly. I mean, to lose, I think it was 0-7. Or 0-7, 2-10. I mean, these were not to talk about the losses, but significant losses. How did you, or what changed in your athletes going into that last push of the season? I know you mentioned that we've got to win or go home, but something significant changed in everybody to be able to then completely turn the tables on Oregon Tech. And I mean, you handed them 11 innings of scoreless ball. I'm just curious, the mentality of your athletes going in when you have those losses under your belt, but then to say, nope, that's just not how it's going to end.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, that was part of what I started with, just finding the consistency. We really had a deep pitching staff. I feel like we had one of the deepest pitching staffs in the country. But to have that obviously firing on a really potent offense, at the same time, and then a solid defense. And we'd often get 2 out of 3 of those and still be able to pull out wins, but Oregon Tech's a good team. They were ranked number 1 for the majority of the season, and they just were consistent. They consistently played just good softball, and they took advantage of mistakes, and they, it is a rivalry game, so everybody gets up, to play those games. And so for us going into them in our conference season, I have to be honest, they hadn't seen us yet. It took our hitters a minute to adjust to pitching that we've seen their pitchers for the last 3 years. They're not new. So we knew that we could adjust, to them, but they had also grown. So they were good, they were better pitchers. But the biggest difference is that our pitching, really hadn't shown up. It just the mental part of being able to go into that game and attack without letting some moments get bigger than they were. That's really what happened. And then, the game's a game of momentum. So as things happened, it just, those were big scores because it's like a couple or 1 big inning, where it just gets out of hand. Earlier in the season. And I think we came back and we competed definitely better in the conference tournament against them. But then they walked it off, in the 7th inning, and that was our 5th loss to them. So we knew that they actually hadn't seen us. And to be honest, for us, with where we were at the World Series, it didn't matter who was in the jersey across the field from us. We had made a complete shift as a team and just embraced the love of playing as long as we could together, playing for each other, owning our roles. And then it allowed everybody to just freely play to their capacity as athletes. And we have some amazing athletes, period. They're just a lot of fun to watch. And to get them to a really free space in their minds, that happened at the right time. But yeah, it happened when they tasted, the chance of our season being over. So facing OIT, when we knew we were matched up in the World Series, there was a hunger, but a composed, they don't actually even know what's gonna come because they haven't faced us yet, and they had played really well against us the 5 times. So we knew they're a good team. And so, yeah, and then after getting the first one and then, winning against Cumberland's the next game, the championship game, it was just all of the same thing. It was our own mentality, and it didn't matter who was across the field.
You did flip that switch because you outscored your opponents 35-2, I think, in the World Series. And we're talking about the Southern Oregon Raiders, the NAIA champions. And because I want to ask you how gratifying that was, but I think you just kind of expressed that in that last answer, talking about how the team accepted their roles. They found their way. And then to see that come to fruition in that dominating fashion on the biggest games of the year, that must be what really excites coaches, just being able to kind of finish on a strong note and have everything come together with that big wins.
Yeah. Well, and it, like I said, it was a challenging year in a lot of ways. And we kept as a team, like taking another step in, getting our hands dirty, having more hard conversations. Like we were not giving up because we knew what we had. We just hadn't tapped into it. And so, yeah, I think because it was frustrating and challenging and rewarding all at the same time along the way, it made the ending that much more rewarding. Yeah, I couldn't ask for, and for me the winning was great, and in that fashion, the dominance, that was great. I'm a competitor. I loved every part of that. But I think the thing for me that I'm just most proud of is how they were able to like come full circle in their own minds and just allow themselves to play without fear, to play without even thinking, oh my gosh, this is my last, or this could be my last, and to make that moment bigger than it is. They just, they did what it took to be present, and they just enjoyed and loved that so much in the moment with each other. And that's the thing that I mean, we really can do anything if we can get our minds to that place as women, as humans. And yeah, it was really sweet to be able to see them do that.
When I was looking at your pitching staff, and Kayla Williams really came through big, especially in that World Series. Are there any other her included athletes that stand out as maybe taking that step up, really grabbing a hold of championship play, either as a leader or physically on the field? Are there any standout performances that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, Kayla Williams is definitely one that deserves another shout out, because that, I mean, it was amazing to just get to see that shift in her. And Riley Donovan, I mean, we're not there without Riley, and the way that, I mean, you can't script it better than for Riley Donovan to go out of her career with a grand slam. I mean, it was like her last swing, and she had just been that consistent all tournament, and she had, come to a space of just calm and composed confidence too. Deja Acosta, our second baseman leadoff. I mean, our team hit like just about 400 at the World Series as a whole. And so
Wow.
you could go through our entire offensive lineup. I mean, Sarah Curling, our center fielder, a sophomore, just dominating in the 9-hole, turning that lineup over. Taylor Fulton, like Lauren Weinberg, her glove at third base was unstoppable. It was like we couldn't even see the ball and it's in her glove. Like it's some shots that came off that hard. And then I think the thing that made the most difference and allowed those players to excel and play freely is the shift that happened in the players that weren't necessarily on the field. And they are leaders that, owned how much of a part of the process they were in getting our team to that place, and not fighting the fact that they weren't written in the lineup. I think of our shortstops. Sammy Pemberton was amazing on the field. Rylan Austin was amazing, taking a leadership role and being on the field for, half the season, but not in postseason. That was a huge thing as a fifth-year senior, to acknowledge that Sammy was the one to be on the field. There's so many, and it really took everybody just fully embracing, okay, we want to finish as strong as we can as a team. We want to win as many games as possible. And so we're going to trust, the coaches in the lineup, and whether we agree or not, I mean, that's just at the end of the day, you can embrace that, or you can have that be something that maybe doesn't allow you to get as far as you can as a team. And so it was 100% every single person and coach in that group.
I appreciate you going through your athletes and so many of the tremendous contributors. When you have a year like you did, there are so many to mention. And you talked about Acosta, 56 RBIs in the leadoff spot. And you talked about Riley Donovan. But, Coach, I'm going to run through a couple of other numbers on her because they're eye-popping. So she leads the nation in home runs, 23, almost at 100 RBIs, leads the nation in total bases and slugging percentage. She was all the way down to second in the country in batting average, 491, third on base percentage, Grand Slam final game. Homers 3 of her final 4 games. Hits 59 homers in her career, which was a homer every 3.1 games in her career. I mean, those are crazy numbers.
Mm-hmm. She's amazing. And honestly, she just kept getting better. So it was she really understood, or learned, I should say, how to manage what people would perceive as pressure, again, not making moments bigger than they are. I think the thing that she, had to limit her frustration to, like, it could only be this much and for this long, because, whether she was going to get thrown to or not was always a question. So she learned how to hit balls that were obviously in the rivers well, but really understanding which balls to let go by in order to pass the bat and give our team the best chance of success, offensively. So, I mean, her role was incredibly difficult, I felt, and, certainly deserving of any accolade. She was a force at the plate. And I would think that she probably was the most feared batter in all of the country to face, for sure.
Wow. Coach, on the way out, I have to ask one more quick question because I love coaches' bios, and yours is fascinating, your career and your journey. You have 5 children at home, is that correct?
5
How
kids.
do you get this all done? Winning championships with 5 kids at home. It must be controlled chaos in your world.
It is controlled chaos, and my husband would be the first to say that. Man, he's amazing. Everyone goes, "Oh, a saint." I'm like, no, I'm not going to give him sainthood, but he's amazing. And honestly, it feels like a circus a lot of the time. But our 4 are older and have been, my oldest is 17 and my 4th is 10, and so those are all really close. And then we just had a surprise number 5 who is 1 year, like literally as of a week ago. So yeah, it is controlled. It is controlled chaos. And I think that probably contributed to how difficult the year was, to be honest. Just like, it just was so much, but it does take a village. And we live in an amazing community, and SOU is such a cool place to be able to just plant our feet and be supported, but also just be a part of a larger community. And yeah, my husband and I, our heads are barely above water most of the time. We also did a remodel in our house this past year, so that was just stupid, on our part. But we are now at the end of the season, so trying to wrap up this year and then hopefully take a breath and take a little bit of time to recoup, because I can say we need it at this point.
We got to the bottom of it finally while this year was so challenging because we pieced all the puzzle pieces together. But Jessica Pistole, our guest, Southern Oregon University, the Raiders, the NAIA national champs. Coach, congratulations on your season, and thanks so much for joining us and sharing some of your stories today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back with more of Perfect Game Softball right after this. Welcome back to Perfect Game Softball. I've got a couple of legends. I've got Amanda Freed. I've got Sierra Romero. We're going to talk about the state of college softball. But ladies, first of all, we had Jordy Bahl on the show to begin with. And Sierra, I'll begin with you. That was seismic news in the college softball world. Not just Oklahoma winning a championship with Jordy, but her transfer back to Nebraska and kind of the waves that all created.
Yeah, I think I'm one of those people that has very mixed emotions about the transfer portal. And in this case, I feel like it helps softball with her move and what she's doing. It's something very rare that you see, because usually you don't see people leaving Oklahoma after winning a national championship. But what she's going to do for the University of Nebraska and just for that state in general is really cool to think about, because she's going to have a huge impact on young athletes who want to be like her. She's going to have an impact on those players, those coaches. They're going to get to know this elite athlete that, I mean, she's done it. She's done just about everything. And now she gets to take that knowledge and go help a new team. And I think it's going to be really good for the fans and the sport.
Amanda, for you,
I couldn't agree. Yeah.
How do you process all that is this transfer portal?
I feel the same. I feel like I'm somebody who I have very mixed feelings about it, because I don't necessarily think it's good for our game that everybody goes to the same place. You want to see parity. You want to see the game spread well across the country. And obviously I don't love to see Jordy leave Oklahoma, because Jordy feels so much a part of Oklahoma. But I love the story of her decision on why she's doing that. And I think it's great for athletes across the country to see and feel that also, because we see Oklahoma's on TV and the UCLA's and, the Florida States at the Women's College World Series. And a lot of athletes believe that that's the only path and that's the best path. And it's not necessarily the case. You want to go where your best fit is. And I'm excited to see what, like Sierra said, what Jordy is able to do for that Nebraska program, just what it's done for ticket sales already, and the hype and the recruitment and what's going to go down there. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Both of you played big roles in the foundation of this game becoming popular, and the TV ratings are off the charts. The crowds in Oklahoma City have been fantastic. Did both of you see this coming 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
I mean, I definitely saw it. I mean, I could tell from I think it was what year was it? My senior year? No, sophomore year, when we made it to the national championship game against Florida. That was the year that we had the most views ever for college softball at the World Series. And when I saw those numbers and we were right up there, we either passed baseball or we were right there with baseball, I was like, this is going to blow up. Like, this is going to be amazing. I'm not saying that was the start of it, but I felt that push during that time. After that, they did the renovations, they did all this amazing stuff to the field. Like, I just felt like they really started to invest in softball. And I just feel like during that time too, like that was that transition from that to NIL to like all these different things that are meant to benefit these athletes. And then I was also a part of the transfer portal. I thought the transfer portal initially, when it first happened, set softball back. And I can't confidently say that it still hasn't. I'm one of those people with mixed feelings. I feel like it does good, but it does bad as well. So I don't really know how I feel about it. But yeah, I just think that this is where this can be huge for the game, because this is when you don't see something like this happen. Jordy can be, I mean, she already is a legend, but she can be leaving like an everlasting legacy, even at Nebraska, for the short time that she's going to be there, because she's going to show just how much a player can have an impact on a program. And imagine how much of an impact she could have had if she was there all 4 years. You never know. So, I mean, Nebraska was at the World Series when I was in college. So you never know. She could take them back there.
Yeah, I date back a little bit further than Sierra, but so when we played in the Women's College World Series, there were only a few games televised, including the one championship game. And so you see that there has been a lot of investment in the game, and I love that. And I felt the push of the growth throughout the years. I never thought they would get to an NLI point. I never thought athletes would get paid, just because I thought, well, why? I don't think we'll ever get to that point, because it's a professional athlete, and so many of those, just for so many reasons, I didn't think it would happen. And I think the portal, I think NIL, I think so much of it is good because it shows the growth and the investment in our sport. I think, like with anything, we did a really hard push, and I think we're going to have to come back a little bit on it just to level it out, to balance it out a little bit. But overall, I mean, I couldn't be more thrilled about the growth of the game and the viewership that we have. And I mean, I think I felt it the most just being out of the game and being around regular people who say, I don't play softball, I don't have any connection, but I love watching it on TV. There are so many softball fans who just enjoy the game. I think we've just done a really, really good job of promoting the sport.
Definitely.
All right, both of you, give me something, one or two things that maybe we haven't discussed that really excite you about the future, whether it's youth softball, college softball, something that you've seen in your travels and working with athletes or watching on TV that you have great optimism for the next couple of years.
You want me to go first, Amanda, or you want to
Go
take it?
for it. No, go for it.
I think the athleticism is totally changing. I feel like freshmen in college now, I think that they're like far more athletic and prepared than even like I was going into Michigan. And I felt really prepared going into Michigan. And now, like, I look at some of these athletes and I see that they're freshmen, and I'm like, wow, they're so well developed. So I think that's where the investment piece is taking place. But I think that's where it's taking place, like in travel ball, which I think is awesome. Because I was really lucky to be a part of an organization like the Bat Busters, where I was really prepared really well. But now it's going across the board. A lot of travel ball organizations are starting to invest in those athletes to really try to help them be ready. So they're not using their freshman year as a let's get you better, but you're going to sit the bench. No, you're going to get there and impact right away, and you're going to help the university. And I think that that's really cool, because to me, that's just showing a complete flip from starting at a younger age, not just in the college level. But I just think that, I don't know, I think that the athleticism is completely different now. Some of the plays I'm seeing these athletes make, I'm like that's amazing. I didn't start making that play until I was a pro. Like, I didn't figure that out till I was a pro, and you're figuring out your freshman, sophomore year in college. Like, I just think that that's just so much better, and it's good for the sport. But I really hope that all of that helps that then translate to the pros for them, so they don't have to stop their career right out of college. They can play, make a living, and there's enough teams for them to join and be able to continue on and play the game they love for as long as possible. But definitely the athleticism is probably the biggest thing I've noticed. It's been insane what these athletes are able to do.
Yeah, it's funny. My daughter's playing an 8U ball right now, and you feel the excitement around the sport starting from a very young age. And so I'm excited for the growth at the young age and everything that you talked about, the athleticism of these athletes. And I'm excited for the growth across the board with the mid-majors and at all levels. I mean, we just talked to Southern Oregon and the NAIA championship. There are so many opportunities for these girls to go out and play. And there are so many more athletes that want to go play. So I think just across the board, the game's going to grow and it's going to get stronger. And I'm hoping we stop seeing, I shouldn't say we stop seeing the same teams, but I hope that it gets to a point where we see different teams every year at the Women's College World Series. Some of those maybe like mid-major teams start to make a presence, and those athletes like the Jordy Bahls recognize the impact they could have at a mid-major. They don't have to go and be with that 1%. They can go to a mid-major that feels good to them, that has their major, that's close to home, and they can impact that program and take them to that next level. So I'm excited for that part of the sport because I think that it's not that far away. And it would be really good for just, I think, the growth in general.
Sierra, I'm curious, because baseball, Oral Roberts is in the Men's College World Series. Southern Miss about got there. Do you think over the next decade we could see a handful of schools that have never played in a Women's College World Series get that opportunity to be in Oklahoma City?
I do. I think I had a couple. I have one that I am really set on. I really think Boise State's going to make a run. I think they're going to have, I don't know how or when it's going to flip, but I mean, it already flipped this past year. Like they had a really good run, but I think that you're going to start seeing them in the postseason, then eventually at the World Series. The coaching staff there is great. Their head coach, Justin Schultz, he's awesome. I got to coach with him when I was at Oregon. And I also think that Coach Lombardi's going to take her team to the World Series. So I think that she got really close, and I just have a really good feeling that next year she's going to be able to make that happen. But I think the biggest thing is going to be athletes having enough confidence in themselves and what they do to stay somewhere and just grind. Put their head down and get to work. Because ultimately, coaches, they want to build a program. They might build a program around one athlete, around 2 or 3, or have a specific class that comes in. It makes it tough, obviously, if athletes are leaving, because then you can't continue to build, knowing that someone's going to be there for at least I mean, ideally it was 4 years, but at least hopefully for 2 years, maybe. I don't know what the new like number is now, but hopefully they stay for 2 years and then they have an opportunity to build around them. I just think that that's when like, that's when like legends are made, right? I think that obviously Oklahoma is like a legendary school. UCLA is a legendary school. But like, you know, they don't need much help with recruiting. People are just going to want to go there because it's them, right? And some of these other universities, it's just like, dang, imagine to be a part of something you build up from the start, right? And just the pride you can take in that, and the ability to, you have to go through some hard stuff. Like you have to learn how to lead and almost coach in a sense. Like it's not easy. And it's definitely like a challenge to be able to do that. But I think that that's what's going to be really cool to see, because that's where those programs that are right there, they'll make the jump. And I think that's going to start to happen. I really do, because I also think a lot of people are also saying that going in the transfer portal isn't always the best option, because they don't end up with what they want, or they end up with nothing. And so you don't want to risk coming out hoping the grass is greener and then you don't get what you're looking for.
This makes perfect sense. I appreciate those answers. And Amanda, I'm going to finish with you. We're going to break down 8U SoCal softball. We'll wait on that. But if you were coming around in today's day and age, or Sierra, how much would you two make an NIL over your 4 or 5 years on the college level? Give me a number. I need to hear. Were UCLA?
I don't even know I don't want to know what's being thrown out there now, because I want, what is it, retroactive pay? Is that what you call that? Like, I want to dip my hand in there. But I have mixed feelings about it, and I know you want a number from me. Not gonna but I wouldn't have changed my experience for anything. And I wonder if that would have changed my experience. You know, the thought of money, would that have taken me somewhere maybe that I shouldn't have gone? Like and I tell people all the time, like we at UCLA, we had a great program. It was not easy, but in my 4 or 5 years there, we never had anybody out or in. Like it was, you got there, you grinded it out, and that created a really strong culture. And that's hard. It's hard to maintain today. And I never once thought like I should be getting paid for this. My education was enough. The experience was enough. I know it's different, so I'm not going to argue that anymore, because I've done that enough. But I love the opportunity for the girls today, but I'm really grateful for the experience that I had in softball.
Yeah, it's tough for me to answer. People ask all the time, how much do you think you would have made? It makes me sick, because I know I probably would have made a lot of money.
Retired.
So yeah, I probably would have done really well. And so it's tough because, you know, I specifically remember being at Michigan when they started selling my jersey, but they don't put the last name on it, because that's how you like avoid any issues. And it was going for like $120. And I'm like, this jersey sold out all the time. Like, I wonder how much I'd be making if I got a piece of that. Like, but at the same time, just like Amanda said, like, I don't know how that would have changed my experience. You know, it's comforting. It was comforting knowing that like I didn't have to worry about my pitchers leaving. Like, it was never a question like, is so-and-so coming back? Like, that was never a worry or a thought in my head. It was, I can't wait to get back to season and, you know, see how so-and-so's improved and us to get after it. So it was never like, I wonder who's going to be my teammate. It was, I knew my team, and we were going to bring in these freshmen, and then we were going to kill it even more. You know, we were going to just continue to grow and get better. It was never a thought of leaving. And even though the transfer portal wasn't a thing when I was there, like I had opportunities to leave. Like I had schools that wanted me to leave Michigan. I had schools that really wanted me to go and play for them and choose to leave Michigan. And I mean, I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. Like I really believed in what we had, and I believed in the team, and I wanted to try to win a national championship. And we got close. We didn't do it, but I mean, I learned so much from those experiences, and you can't sit here and tell me that, you know, my softball career is any less because I didn't win a natty. So it's just, to me, I'm like, I don't know. I think that it would have been cool. It would have been nice, but it's also hard to think about because I don't really know. I wouldn't change what I had at Michigan for anything.
That's a good way to wrap. Ladies, thanks so much for the visit.
Thank you.
That was Sierra Romero, Amanda Freed. Also joining us on the show, of course, the legendary Jordy Bahl on her way to Nebraska, and Jessica Pistole, the head coach of the NAIA national champions, the Southern Oregon Raiders. So thanks to all. This has been another edition of Perfect Game Softball. Darren Sutton will return. I'm Brett Dolan, but thanks for tuning in.